Hi everyone. I just want to say thank you to all the artists who've shared so far. It's just been an amazing evening, and I was just actually sitting there thinking, wouldn't it be great if this Carnival of the Bold was actually a travelling roadshow, and I would be so on board for that. I think this is so important. These conversations that get started here need to be started, and they need to be had and continued outside of here. And I, for one, am someone that chooses to have those conversations, some of which I'm about to talk about tonight, in my daily life. And I often am told that by my partner I should come with a warning, because I don't script myself, so I don't know exactly what will come out of my mouth once I start talking. So there, I've said that. So the images that you're going to see on the screen are images from the first children's book that I've written and illustrated. I spent time at the School for Social Entrepreneurs 2 years ago now, and I went with this really great idea for one thing and ended up kind of shelving that idea, and I was just mentioning to someone before, kind of sitting in this empty space of not knowing what it is I was going to do. And A Girl in the World is what came out of that space. And when I talk about that empty space, I talk about a time where I actually just kind of stopped my world and hopped off and stopped worrying about the expectations that I had on myself and others, and thought, you know, I'm here with this opportunity, what do I want to do with it? Like, what is speaking to me from inside of me? And you know, when I was sitting in the seat earlier, I thought, oh God, what if I get up and say, hi, I'm Melanie and I'm an addict? Like, what if I make that mistake? It's the wrong audience, and, you know. But that's okay, because, you know, I am, and I've been clean and sober for 22 years, but I'm also someone that believes passionately about medicinal cannabis, and but I won't get started on that because I'll just completely veer off. The idea behind A Girl in the World, and possibly, yeah, you're seeing the images, there's probably about 9 images that we'll go through. You know, if I just kind of talk about the time in my life that she kind of first ran across my head in imagery, was at a time where I was feeling really quite helpless and hopeless, and really struggling with adult life, and it was really for quite a period where I thought, you know, I had an experience. I thought, I'm not going to come back from this. Like, this is the life experience at which I'm just going to go under, and I'm not going to be able to pick myself up off the floor. And everything felt too hard. And I was a parent of 4 children. I was a single parent of 4 children, so it really wasn't a good space to be in. So what was happening for me prior to this was I was getting up, you know, every day, and I was getting the kids off to school, and I was functioning, and I was doing the washing, and I was doing the cooking, and I was doing the cleaning, and I was, you know, helping with the homework, and I was a student at art school, and, you know, I just had this continual kind of, you know, pick myself up off the floor, get the stuff done, function, and then just fall apart once the kids are at school. And I spent a lot of time crying, and I'm not going to talk about that, like the why of that, because it involves someone else's personal, you know, privacy. But what I will say about that is there was a trigger back to my own childhood sexual abuse, really, really strong trigger. And, you know, I thought I'd been creative before, and I used to draw a lot as a child, and, you know, I'd already experienced kind of how art can change you and, you know, and save you at times. And for me, it was very much about this process of, you know, finding and losing and finding myself all the time through painting and drawing and writing. Like, whatever the creative expression was, that was the feeling and the process. And I thought, that's gone. Like, this experience that had happened has killed that off in me, and I can't connect from here down, because if I do, then you know, I just don't want to be here. And this little girl came out of that experience. You know, I had this, she literally ran across my brain one day, and it was a time where three kind of significant creative pieces happened. I started drawing probably half the size of that screen. One day I went out and bought a canvas, a huge canvas, and I started drawing the Grim Reaper, painting the Grim Reaper, because that's how I felt. And the whole painting that I did at that time took probably about 3 months to work on every day. And what happened, and I don't have that here, but what happened was I started painting it, and it was going to be the Grim Reaper, and it was going to be dark and death and black and depressed, because that's how I felt. And then in that process, blue came into it, and then shades of light blue came into it, and then white, and then glass, and then words, and then quotes, and then it actually ended up being such a healing piece of artwork that just kind of broke through all of those feelings. And I think that's why I'm so passionate about what creativity can do for people, and I'm always talking to anyone and everyone that I can talk to about it, and trying to encourage other people to be still enough to listen to what's going on inside of them and try and tap into that, and so many people say, oh, I'm not creative, I can't draw, I can't paint, and I challenge anyone, to start somewhere with something and try and, go, remember back to a time when before you even questioned that stuff. You were a little kid and you didn't question that stuff. If you had a pen or a pencil or a paintbrush in your hand, or Play-Doh, or whatever, it was open slather, and you didn't probably have all that kind of someone else's voices in your head around creativity. And then from like that big angel picture that I painted, in that process, it just kind of freed me up, and I painted another picture, and the other picture that I painted was a woman with a map inside of her. She was cut off at the head, so there was, which is I wondered about it for a while, and I think it just even dropped in even more here and now, like why she had no head. But she had a heart, and she had a map, and it was a map of all her feelings, and that was kind of like just painting through that process, putting something in, creating something through a process that allowed me to express things that I just had no words for. And then from there, I started working on these images. So they came kind of one after the other, and it was definitely about the ups and downs. It was about 1 minute the little girl's on top of the world, the next minute the world's on top of her. It was about, trying to find a balance in your life. Like, how do you figure out how to do all this over here and then all this over here, and not, topple over one way or the other. And, with my own 4 children, two of whom are my children, and 2 are my niece and nephew that I've been raising, for the last 10 years, who've just been restored back to the custody of their parents. They, all 4 of my children have been raised to talk about their feelings and to express what's going on for them. So for me to be in a place where I was so unable to do that for myself was really quite a gut-wrenching process for me. And, the whole idea around putting this book together and the subsequent books, it's about giving a voice to children. And I don't even like it when I say that. It's not about giving a voice to children. Children have a voice, and if you listen, they will tell you, my experience, if you listen, they will tell you what's going on for them. And I think that, there's so much of life that happens for children that is just about what's happening to them, and they don't necessarily have the space or the place or the time to be able to speak up and speak out about what life is like for them daily. And I'm not just talking about kids in extreme circumstances. I mean, that was my experience. I had absolutely I didn't have a voice as a child. I was, everything was unspeakable to me. And so, I couldn't communicate about anything. But there are children that, so-called normal children, living lives every day that are hurried and harassed, and, the creativity's gone out of their life, or it's put in a schedule, or it's just kind of, you see you see it at events like this, like we're here and we're all like, whoa, creativity, like how powerful it is. Like this is everyday life stuff for me, and for anyone that comes in contact with me, you know, it's my, you know, it's the way I choose to live my life. Creative expression is an extension of my own personal power and ability to, you know, choose to speak up and speak out. I've had experiences in the last year where I've spoken at a few public events, and I always talk about my own experience with childhood sexual abuse and how important it is to speak about that. And I can speak about that. I can talk about my experience because I've had healing. But that process took a very long time, and I almost destroyed myself before I got to the point where I could talk about it. And I know that there's a world full of people out there doing that, and that's why I choose to speak up about it. And I think that, you know, I was just saying to Adam, you know, I commend you on what you're doing, and had I walked my children through that gallery, I would have explained it to them. I've had those conversations with my kids since they were knee-high to a grasshopper. They knew a penis was a penis, a vagina was a vagina, just like it was an elbow and an ear and a nose, you know, and nothing was a mystery. And I explained it in terms that they could understand, because it's important for kids to know. And I don't want to scare my children about these things, you know, happening. I wanted to prepare them so that they knew what they could do if it ever happened to them. And I don't regret that. You know, I have a 22-year-old and a 19-year-old and a 15-year-old and a 13-year-old that tell me that that was okay. And I think the really important thing for me when I'm speaking about that is that, you know, I was saying earlier, I'm interested in that space. I know what it's like to be a victim. I know what it's like to be out there in the world being a victim, you know, hurting myself, hurting other people, and just being a mess because of it. And I know what it's like to then, you know, get help and have some healing and be a survivor, you know, like I survived it and I can talk about it and I've dealt with it. And, you know, and then there's this whole other space that I just don't really know who's out there talking to the bit where you can thrive. Like, you can actually get to a place in your life where this happened to me, and I have given the shame of it back to who it belongs to. So I don't walk around in the world anymore with that shame attached to me and everything that I do. And the big picture for a girl in the world is that there's a boy in the world coming, there's other stories coming, and then there'll eventually be a story that will be around, you know, children's rights to their own bodies and being able to speak up and kind of speak out about their experience. But this particular book is very much just, it's about opening up the conversation to be able to speak to kids about the ups and downs of life. And depending on whose hands it's in, it depends on how far you want to take those conversations, depending on who's listening and how willing the person is to listen. You know, I have 80-year-old women relating to the images in this book. I have women in suits, you know, relating to some of the images in this book. And, you know, I found it's, you know, the story's out there in the foyer if you're interested in buying it. That would be fantastic. And I just wanted to say, again, thank you to Kevin and Zara. This is just such an incredible opportunity for people to get up and share their story and share their hopes and their passions and the way creativity is affecting change, you know, in their world and the world around them. And if you're ever going to organise a roadshow that travels, I would love to be involved. Thanks.